For the last 4 years, our next guest was in charge of the city's response whenever an emergency hit the 5 boroughs. Most recently, he has been helping Mayor Mamdani deal with last month's winter storm and the deep freeze that followed and has resulted in 18 deaths. Now, Zach Iscol is stepping down effective today, and he joins me now on his last day on the job to talk about all of that and more. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So 4 years, you have dealt with any number of emergencies, snowstorms, floods, there was wildfire smoke, there was a couple earthquakes, right?
We've literally seen it all. We've had earthquakes, we've had extreme rainfall, we've had the air quality issues and air smoke from Canada. We've had space weather, we've had cyber incidents, we've had shootings, you name it, we have dealt with it over the last 4 years.
Fortunately, no terror attack in that time, right?
Very fortunately. Yeah.
What was it that most kept you up at night during your time on the job? Was it terrorism? Was it cyber?
I mean, I think at one point it was the migrant crisis, right? Because that was a months and months ongoing. It was ongoing operations, going out to these sites, standing up operations to keep up with the flow of people coming to the city. At other points, it was just a bunch of different incidents occurring at the same time, right? Whether it was 5-alarm fires or water main breaks, different weather events that were compounded by being on top of each other. So over the last 4 years, there's a lot of things that led to a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of things leading to my phone ringing in the middle of the night. So it sort of varied based on the time of year and the period of my service over the last 4 years.
Let's talk briefly about your exit. I know you submitted your resignation a few weeks back. Did you hear from the administration that the mayor was planning to name his own person to the job and they wouldn't be keeping you on?
We never had those conversations. I was planning to leave the city last spring. When a number of deputy mayors resigned, I sort of felt like the responsible thing was to stick around through hurricane season and the end of the year. Dean Fulihan, the first deputy mayor, called me in December and asked if I would stay on for a bit to help with the transition. And I told him that I was ready for what is next, but I also believe in making sure that there's a responsible transition and doing right by them and by the city. And so I committed to that, and that was the end of the conversation.
Right, so that you never really got to the point where you knew whether the mayor wanted you to stay or not because you were ready to move on.
I'm now one of the longest serving emergency management commissioners. I've been in this job 4 years, and to do this job well, you have to operate 24/7. And I've got young kids, I've got a family who that takes me away from. And so I was ready to start that next chapter. I was ready for the next challenge. I've been ready for almost a year. And I made that clear to them, and so that conversation just never took place.
All right, so now that you're leaving, you can tell us all the secrets.
All of them. What secrets? You want to know where the aliens are? They're in the
I was going to ask you about Mayor Mamdani and what it's been like working for him just in these last few weeks, and how maybe his management style differs from Mayor Adams, who you worked for 4 years.
You were just throwing out a bunch of easy questions right off the bat, huh? Look, I think first off, there's some real similarities. I have been with both mayors during real moments of tragedy. I have seen how, after a 5-alarm fire, when people are displaced from their homes, I have seen the way that both of them interact with people who have been victimized by these incidents. They certainly are very different in a lot of ways, but I think that is one thing that I've seen that's a real similarity. And I've been very honest about this. I've been very impressed with the team that Mayor Mamdani is putting together. I think he and I certainly have probably some very clear political differences, but I think that's okay, right? I think we live in a world where people should be able to work together who don't necessarily agree on everything and find places of agreement. And what I've seen from him is he is building a really smart, capable team. He's got some really wonderful people around him who I've enjoyed working with, and I wish them all the success in the future.
For now, there is no commissioner in place, though, right? So what happens at emergency management right now? I mean, we're still in the midst of this crisis with the cold snap.
So I am leaving the city, with a balmy 45 degrees today. So we're at the tail end of this cold snap. But I'm also leaving an agency that we have record high retention, record low vacancies, historic in both levels. 100% of our executive positions are filled other than the commissioner. My first deputy will be stepping in as the acting commissioner until they appoint a commissioner. I've recommended that she would be fantastic for the job, but I know they're in the stages of interviewing people for this job.
So you are moving on to the private sector. Can you tell us what the next
Ink's
job is?
still not dry yet on the contract, but I'm going to the private sector and I'll be starting a job fairly shortly.
Okay. So I know you're passionate about public service, and you're also an ambitious guy. I know you briefly ran for mayor, right, and then for city controller back in 2021. So what are you gonna run for next?
I am running to just make sure I'm taking care of my kids. I mean, right now, look, I've got, and this sounds like such a cliche when people say I'm leaving to go spend time with my family. I will never have a more important role than being married to my wife and being the father of her 4 kids. I've got 1 in college, I've got 3 little ones, 11, 10, and 7, and I want to spend time with them. And so for right now, this chapter of my life is really about being a more present dad, a more present husband, not having a phone that's going off at 3 in the morning that is taking me away from them. And so that's really what I'm focused on now.
Eventually, though, you would consider running for public office?
I would consider it. I am a public servant. I love public service. And the thing I love most about it, and the thing that was hardest for me walking out of the building today, is I really love working with the men and women who serve this city. Right? Like, there's nothing like it. It reminds me of when I was in the Marine Corps, working every day with Marines, people who are about something bigger than themselves. I'm going to miss that. I miss it already, and that is really hard for me. And so who knows what the future will hold, but right now I know what this next chapter is. This next chapter is about my family.
Let me ask you about the current crisis that the city has found itself in just these past couple of weeks with the storm and then the extended deep freeze that has resulted in 18 people who've died outdoors. That's not even to count the ones who we have learned have died indoors. But there's been some criticism of the administration. I know you testified yesterday before the city council. Is it unfair to blame the administration for some of these deaths and for not doing more to get people inside?
So it's a great question, and it's a totally fair question. I think, look, there is always more that, and especially as public servants, that every single person who dies because of anything in the city, nobody takes it harder than us, other than the families of those that were lost. I think it's also a reminder that we live in a day and age of extreme weather that is really dangerous. You know, a few years ago, we had Hurricane Ida. 13 New Yorkers lost their lives to dangerous flooding in the city. Last summer, we had a really dangerous heat wave in New York City in June, where I think the most recent count is about 19 New Yorkers died in that heat wave due to extreme heat. And so I think there is always more that we as a city can be doing. But I think it's also a reminder that we do live in a day and age of extreme weather. In the time that I've been in this job, we've seen record rainfall rates, record cold, we've seen record heat, in addition to things like you mentioned earlier, like air pollution from Canada, these types of things that are sort of new and novel for a city like New York. We now live in a subtropical climate. We used to have a continental climate. That means that we're going to be subjected to more of these events. And it's something that we need to be prepared for. And I think that we have had an overwhelming response to this weather event. We've had about 84 people removed off the streets by NYPD and DSS involuntarily. We've had about another 1,400 people that have moved into shelter. We've had over 3,000 people that have used our temporary shelters. So I think there is a lot that we have been doing over the last couple of weeks to address this. But again, you can never do more. And I think the one other thing I'd add to this is often in these events, we really focus on the response. But we don't think about what we could have been doing further upstream to prevent these tragedies from occurring in the first place. And I'll give you one example of that. After Hurricane Ida, we got very concerned. There was a lot of talk about what we could have been doing to stage life safety vehicles around the city, to respond faster to people drowning in their basements. But since then, we have done nothing to address the underlying things that could have been done through legislation to mandate doors that swing in instead of out so people don't get trapped in their buildings, to make sure that people have flood alarms in their buildings, to make sure that people have a second point of egress when living in basement apartments and not having safety bars on their windows that prevent them from escaping through a window. People drown for those reasons. And in the 4 or 5 years since Ida, we haven't done anything to address those things that could be done further upstream. So in this weather event, one of the things I'm really looking for is to see the analysis of the specific cases of the 18 deaths from Department of Health, from the Chief Medical Examiner, and then looking at what could we have really done to prevent these deaths further upstream.
All right. Zach Iscol, I was going to call you commissioner. I guess I should call you former commissioner.
Former commissioner. Zach is totally fine.
You're going to sleep well tonight. I guess you can turn your phone off.
I'm going to put my phone so far away from our bedroom, it's not even funny tonight.
All right, Zach Iscol, thanks again for spending some time with us.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.